This week's edition of NJBIA's Minding Your Business is brought to you in part by AT&T, helping family, friends, and neighbors connect in meaningful ways every day. From the first phone call 140 years ago to mobile video streaming today, AT&T innovates to improve lives. And by New Jersey Business Magazine, providing the critical information needs for New Jersey's business community for more than 65 years.
Welcome to NJBIA's Minding Your Business. I'm Bob Considine. Well, the legislature's in the midst of its lame duck session after a very dramatic election day. Here to discuss all the goings-on in the State House here in Trenton is NJBIA Chief Government Affairs Officer, Chrissy Buteas. Chrissy, thanks for returning to the show.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for having me.
All right, so lots going on. I mentioned lame duck here at the outset. I would like you, Chrissy, to explain to our viewers what a lame duck session is. People hear the term and I don't think they always know what it is.
Absolutely. So every 2 years, the legislature has to pass essentially any bill, and if it is not signed into law by the governor, it would need to be reintroduced. And that's because our legislative sessions are 2 years in length. And so we're at the tail end of that 2 years. And so from mid-November over to about mid-January is what we consider that lame duck period, a very, very hectic time over in the State House.
And a very interesting time for
Very
you.
interesting.
So what bills or agendas should New Jersey's business community pay some mind to over the next couple months?
We've been meeting with our legislative leaders leading up to this lame duck session, and key themes I think are really important for the legislature to keep in mind is that New Jersey still ranks third highest in our unemployment rate. That we need to get our business community back up on its feet is really critical. At the same time, still experiencing that workforce crisis. And so while there are very specific bills that we have weighed in on with the legislative session now starting again with this past Monday, we really want to make sure that any legislation that comes out or is considered by the legislature tries to propel the business community and the economy forward and not put more mandates on the business community so that we're struggling getting out of COVID-19.
Yeah, mandates have been a huge issue for businesses in New Jersey throughout this administration pretty much. I wanted to turn to, Election Day I mentioned at the outset was very dramatic. Governor Phil Murphy is elected to his second term, but by a much narrower margin than we anticipated. But the shocker is Senate President Steve Sweeney did not win. He lost to basically a political newcomer named Edward Durr. And that's a post he held since 2010. Absolutely. So how do you imagine this playing out? Both scenarios with, which basically saw maybe some more Republican strength over during the election. How that's going to impact how things legislatively going over the next year?
It's huge, Bob. The electorate spoke. From what we can tell, it appears that New Jersey voters have said, look, we want to have a balanced approach to policymaking here in the state. And we have been saying that all along as a business community. Let's make sure that when we're talking about public policy, that we're keeping our employees, our employers in mind, that we're putting forward policies that make sense for New Jersey. And the new dynamic at play is something I think we're all still trying to figure out. NJBIA has had a great working relationship with the Senate President. He's been the Senate President for over a decade. And right now, the legislature and the Senate Democrats specifically need to elect their new leader. As you already know, Speaker Coughlin has been selected by his respective caucus members to head into his third term. And obviously, Governor Murphy, as you alluded to, has won re-election to his second term in office.
I'm curious to see, Senate President Sweeney, he was always big on a reform agenda, or the path to progress. Do you think that still has any chance with him not being there anymore?
We certainly hope so. And so for our viewers who may not be as familiar with the path to progress, a lot of the initiatives the Senate President has put forward during his tenure really tried to get at how to improve the health of the state of New Jersey, really addressing debt and being one of the most expensive states to do business in the nation. And so that affordability and that competitiveness factor are really baked into those Path for Progress bills. But I still think it's going to be a long shot to get them across the finish line, unfortunately.
Competitiveness, key topic here, is I was going to bring up to our viewers here. One of the bills that you testified on the legislature first session back was a bill that establishes what's called a prescription drug affordability board, which in essence, at the end of the day, could control prices for the pharmaceutical industry, only the pharmaceutical industry. So I think we understand the intent of that bill. Obviously, those costs are high, but NJBIA and other groups, many other groups, opposed it or had concerns about it. Why is that?
Again, a very well-intentioned bill. And we frequently hear from our membership that the rising cost of health insurance is a top priority and one that the NJBIA team continuously testifies in front of the legislature about. How are we going to reduce the price of providing, cost-effective, high-quality care to our employees? The employer community actually insures over half of New Jersey residents, so this is a really big concern. Getting back to that legislation, however, we want to be mindful that we don't create an environment where we're not competitive with other states in the country, especially because we have such a large pharmaceutical and manufacturing base here in the state. And again, the idea of a price control is very, very concerning to the business community, not just because of the precedent it sets in the pharmaceutical industry, but what it could do in other sectors of the economy as well.
Right. And you think about those pharma companies in New Jersey, how important they've been with the COVID vaccines even. And I also think people don't always understand, yes, the costs are exorbitant. But they also don't understand what goes into producing a drug and all the research that goes in. That's maybe one of the reasons why the costs are what they are.
Yeah, R&D is really critical in the pharmaceutical industry. There's a lot of tests that have to be done, and the failure rate is very high. And so there's a lot of investment that goes into manufacturing a drug prior to it going on into market. And that includes actually the building of the manufacturing facility and running that while not having your product essentially on the shelf at that point in time.
Yeah, very good. I wanted to turn to a couple of bills impacting business that had been on the governor's desk for months, really. And he had to run for governor, so he was busy. But he recently took action on this one particular bill, Chrissy, that commits $3 million from the Supplemental Workforce Fund for basic skills. Basically, it ensures funding for the state's basic skills program, correct?
Absolutely. This is a bill I am thrilled that Governor Murphy signed. Years ago, NJBIA, in collaboration with our community colleges, had this legislation, signed into law, working with our policymakers, very appreciative of our sponsors of this legislation, to allow businesses to send employees to community colleges to get the skills they need to perform their job functions. This has been by far the most successful workforce development program in the state. And so by Governor Murphy signing this bill, he has doubled the amount of money put into this fund, which has already trained over 185,000 New Jersey employees. And so we're really looking forward to that continued collaboration with the county colleges to get even more folks to attend these courses and to get the skills that they need at such a critical time.
Yeah, and it does speak to workforce development at a time when it's really needed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Also, the other one I wanted to bring up, another one that NJBIA worked exclusively on, is allowing the Board of Cosmetology and Hairstyling licenses to operate mobile facilities while practicing their services. So basically what I'm getting out of this is hairstylists, barbers will be able to do their services in a truck, basically, or...
Absolutely, in a van that meets certain specifications. And so credit to Senator Michael Testa from Cape May County, the sponsor of this legislation, working with the industry and saying, we've had to reinvent ourselves through COVID. And the government shut down bricks and mortar
Right.
salons. And so the idea of coming up with a mobile facilities, made sense. It's still regulated and goes to people's homes. What we don't want to see are folks getting services in an unregulated environment.
Right.
And I think this legislation will allow that flexibility that's needed for salon owners to deliver their critical services, whether they want to do so, on Main Street, or whether they want to do so in a van of some sort that meets certain specifications and bringing their delivery right to the consumer's door.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, going back to the beginning of the pandemic, what was born out of it was a creation of a salon alliance, right?
Yes.
So these people thrilled now?
They're certainly happy with this piece of legislation, and we still continue to work with the Department of Consumer Affairs on additional, rules and regulations to really make the salon industry grow in the state.
Right.
They, like many folks, have suffered from that workforce crisis that I alluded to earlier on, and trying to figure out ways to drive folks into that industry is really critical.
Yeah, I'm also thinking that bill actually helps the consumer too, bring some flexibility. They don't have to go drive somewhere anymore,
Just have to walk outside.
All right, one last bill, Chrissy, that the governor did conditionally veto. It requires that certain provider subsidy payments for child care services be based on enrollment instead of attendance. And I know where we landed on this one, but child care in general, how important is this? Coming out of the pandemic, we still have a workforce crisis, as you mentioned, child care services. What size priority is this right now?
Huge.
Yeah.
And the business community has been saying this throughout COVID, that we need to make sure that we have the child care available for our working, our working employees, both mothers and fathers, so that they're able to return to work. And we're also looking to make sure that we have a mixed delivery system at play too. So a mixture of private and public entities working together to figure out what is the best mechanism for the consumer to get that critical service, over to their child. Right. As you know, Bob, there have been a lot of initiatives put forward both by Governor Murphy and also by Speaker Coughlin, who's really taken this on as a key priority of his, to get money into the child care industry. We want to make sure, though, that money that has been allocated is actually getting to those who need it most right now. And that's one of our concerns, is making sure that the money that has been set aside for childcare gets to those childcare providers, and so that more of our employees and parents, families can take advantage of the childcare industry. It's so critical right now. And so we will continue to work with our policymakers on making sure that childcare remains a top priority heading into this lame duck session, but also into the new session that kicks up in the middle of January.
Right, very good. And lastly, Chrissy, another big priority. This is a priority that I feel like you've taken a lot of ownership for, as well as the association. And it's basically about hiring workers who are disabled. And you have a fantastic column in the current issue of New Jersey Business Magazine. It's called A Meaningful Mission, Hiring Workers with Disabilities. What can you say about this initiative?
So important. Some months ago, we worked with Senate President Sweeney, who really has made the hiring of folks with disabilities a key priority. Sure. And what we did was collaborate with our government entities, our providers, our other business associations, and say, hey, how can we all come together to figure out ways to enhance the hiring of those with disabilities? Right. I think it's important to note that over 1 million New Jersey residents do have some disability. Yeah. And to get them into the workforce is critical. Right. I know we all stress a lot about the importance of having a diversified workforce. We shouldn't exclude those that are disabled. And so what we have been doing is working with those stakeholders, as I said, and trying to educate the business community about the benefits of hiring those with disabilities. Right. And so to those watching, I'm encouraging you to reach out to me to get additional resources. They're also on our website about ways to hire someone with a disability. There are resources out there, whether from the not-for-profit sector, as well as from our state government, who will provide job coaches and other resources to them.
Yeah. Folks, if you want to get more Look at the November 2021 issue of New Jersey Business Magazine. You can find it with this cover on njbmagazine.com. I want to read one other stat from this. I know we have to go, but according to the most recent data, the unemployment rate of working age adults with disabilities in New Jersey is 37.7%. Do you think, Chrissy, as we wrap this up, that there's kind of a stigma for folks that are a little bit concerned that the person might not be able to perform their work functions? Is that the issue?
I think that's part of it. I think that there is also a stigma about what jobs someone with a disability can fill. Right. And what we learned by hosting these webinars with the business community and our other stakeholders is that folks with disabilities can fill many, many jobs. And so please don't limit them without having that conversation and interviewing those with disabilities. And so there's obviously a lot of room for growth here. And so we've been trying to work with our business community partners to get the message out that this is really critically important, that folks that do have disabilities tend to have higher retention rates and are tremendous assets to the employer's team.
Yeah, we've heard great anecdotal evidence about what the employers actually get out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Chrissy Buteas, well said and well done one more time. Thank you for all you do in Trenton. She's the hardest working person in Trenton, and we're glad you're back.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, and we'll be back right after this.
Okay, at AT&T, everyone gets our best deals on all smartphones.
Let me break it down. You got your new customers.
They get our best deals.
You got your existing customers. They
Also get our best deals. Everyone gets the deals.
questions.
Got it. But why did you use a permanent marker?
Because I want to make sure you remember. I'm going to get a new whiteboard.
It's not complicated. Only AT&T gives everyone our best deals on every smartphone, like the Samsung Galaxy S21 5G for free.
Welcome back to NJBIA's Minding Your Business. I'm Bob Considine. Well, NJBIA's calendar of networking events continues, and here to tell us all about them is Kate Conroy and Vinny Civitillo. Take a look.
Hey everybody, I'm Kate Conroy.
And I'm Vinny Civitillo.
And I'm back again, busting into Minding Your Business for another segment on what we've been up to in the events department. You know, a lot of people don't know this, but the events department is the most important department in the entire organization.
I've actually always been partial to communications, but whatever.
Of course, I'm kidding. It's a team effort for sure.
Because truly, only together can everyone achieve more.
Corny, but true. Okay, we're getting to the end of the year, but we still have a few things happening. First up, our 2022 Public Policy Forum. Lots of people have asked me over the years why it's called the 2022 Public Policy Forum, and
Myself
the answer...
included.
I know. And the answer is simple. I actually added that for you. The answer is simple. We bring together a bunch of people to talk about the year that we just experienced and make some predictions about how next year is going to go. So the focus really is on 2022.
Makes sense. So when you say a bunch of people,
I thought you'd never ask. The speaker lineup is fantastic. Often this event is a very serious policy wonky event where people dig deep, but this year the speakers are incredibly accessible. And they make the content really user-friendly. For example, the Investing in New Jersey Jobs panel will feature Lori Griffa of Archer Law, Jose Lozano of Choose New Jersey, Dan Lynch of United Airlines, Colin Newman of Amazon, and they'll be moderated by Rhonda Schaffler of New Jersey Spotlight News. I'm sure some of those names are familiar to you, and if you know them the way I know them, you'll remember that they're all super down-to-earth, approachable, knowledgeable, and again, accessible.
cool. Actually, a jobs panel sounds like just the right thing right now.
That is absolutely correct. I don't know if you remember this, but New Jersey's economic recovery was one of the longest in the nation after the last recession, and the hope is that this time around we can get through it a little quicker and better. And yes, we think this group will have some insight on that.
Awesome. What else you got?
Well, I saved the best for last. Not to overhype, but our keynote is someone I saw a few years ago at another event, and I swear I've never laughed so hard or so often listening to someone talk about the economy and the challenges that New Jersey was facing at the time.
Sounds like a lie to me.
I swear to God it's true. Andrew Goldberg is the global head of market and asset class strategy at JP Morgan. And while I don't even a little bit understand his title, I know that the content of his presentation is going to be interesting and compelling. He's not flying solo this time though. He'll be in conversation with his colleague Stephanie Roth, the executive director of global wealth management for JP Morgan.
All right, can I assume njbia.org/events, place to go for all of that?
100%. And if I know you, I think you will have already dropped it into the bottom for all the people to see.
Indeed.
Appreciate that. And don't forget that every single Monday from noon until 1, we have a virtual networking opportunity called Table for 4, where we start in a big room and then separate into little breakouts of 4 or 5 people for a deep dive of getting to know each other. And then after about 10 or 15 minutes, we do it again in a second breakout room, so that by the end of the hour, you have gotten to know 5 to 6 brand new people, and you're encouraged to set up one-on-ones afterward to get to know them a little bit better. And as a special treat just for you, use the coupon code NJBIA guest, all one word, all uppercase when registering, and come as my guest.
That sounds cool. What else you got on the virtual front?
Actually, I don't know that I've ever done a deep dive on our councils. We do big events periodically through the year, but our councils are really the workhorses of the organization. The HR Council meets about 10 times per year. They bring in HR attorneys to help make sure the attendees, often HR professionals, but not always, have all the tools they need to do their jobs well. The Women Business Leaders Council brings in speakers each month to do professional development presentations for women who are at all levels of their careers. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council has speakers and networking each month, and they take a really holistic view of the topic. In November, for example, their presentation will be on mental health as we head into the holidays, recognizing that mental health is still often stigmatized in our society. And finally, the Not-for-Profit Council, in addition to bringing in speakers to help with best practices, they facilitate relationships between for and not-for-profit members as well. These groups are the lifeblood of NJBIA.
Awesome. Before you go, actually the last time you were here, you told us about a virtual in-person hybrid event. How'd that go?
It was amazing. You know that I am not all that techie, but we had attendees in the ballroom, and we had attendees logged in via Zoom, and we had speakers in the ballroom, and speakers logged in via the Zoom, and we were able to seamlessly switch streams so that attendees, no matter where they were, had exactly the same experience.
I would expect nothing less from the best department at NJBIA.
It was a team effort, of course, and I continue to be so grateful for the amazing group of humans that I get to work with each day, including Ray Cantor, Alexis Bailey, Amy Music, Betty Boros, and of course your excellent self.
Aw.
And that's all for me. Thanks for having me back, and I'll see you next time.
All right, Kate and Vinny, thank you so much, and we'll be back right after this.
You're first. First to respond. First to put others' lives before your own. And in an emergency, you need a network that puts you first, that connects you to technology and each other, that's built with and for first responders. FirstNet, the only officially authorized wireless network for first responders. Because putting you first is our job.
Welcome back to NJBIA's Minding Your Business. In closing today, we take you to a video tribute of NJBIA's recently announced Awards for Excellence winners. Have a look at New Jersey's leading companies and executives. All right, those were NJBIA's Awards for Excellence winners for 2021. We thank them for all they do for the state of New Jersey, and we thank you for joining us on NJBIA's Minding Your Business. We'll see you next time.